Hi, I will talk about Expressionism. Uh, Firstly, definition of aesthetic: a set of principles concurred with the nature of appreciation of beauty, the branch of philosophy which deals with question of beauty and artistic taste. Artistic is a branch of philosophic study that relates to the nature and explanation of beauty and taste. In other words, it's derived from the Greek word aesthetikos, which refers to sensory perception and understanding or sensuous knowledge. As aesthetic concurrence and appreciation of beauty, it is influenced by the subjective taste of an individual, like painting and sculpturing. Architecture can be considered as a visual art, to which the philosophy of aesthetics can be applied. However, this application of aesthetics to buildings and architecture is complicated by the physical requirements of the brief budget structures, climate, weather, and so on, meaning that buildings design is driven by form and function as well as aesthetics. What is expressionism? Expressionism is an intensely personal art form. The expressionist artist strives to convey his personal feelings about the object painted rather than to merely record his observation of it. So, in order to achieve maximum impact on the viewer, representation of accuracy is sacrificed in favor of strong outlines and bold colors, and are often characterized by thick impasto paint, loosely freely applied brush strokes, and occasional symbolism. The message is all important. Um, Expressionism architecture. The architecture is one of the three dominant styles of modern architecture. The form of an emotional effect, primary aesthetic forms: the beautiful, the sublime, the tragic, the ugly, and the comic. Um, Subordination of realism, the symbolic or stylistic explanation of inner experience, an underlying effort at achieving the new, original, and visionary. Um, Dance of natural romantic, such as caves, mountains, lighting, crystal, and rock formation, such as it is more mineral and elemental than fluid and organic, which characterizes its close contemporary art. Lulu's creative potential of artisan craftsmanship tends more towards the Gothic than the classical. Expressionist architecture also tends more towards the Romanesque and the Rococo than the classical. Thought a movement in Europe, Expressionism is as Eastern as Western, it draws as much from Moorish, Islamic, Egypt, and Indian arts, and architecture as from Roman or Greek. Conception of architecture as a work of art. The style also determines its unique dynamic in architecture. By eliminating the 90-degree angle is considered as the basic technique. The purpose of the interacting functionality with form creates the distinctive dynamic of the expressive understanding of architecture with the use of unconventional forms and new materials. Individual and so emotional design understanding is the philosophy of expressionist architecture. Expressionist architecture is generally not fit by history, but some experienced architects have made efforts to interpret the past architecture in the buildings they designed. While experienced buildings create any opposition to the rational international style, they have also changed the static of the cities by bringing a new originality, vitality, and dynamism to the architecture. Expressionism architecture and origins history. The term the architecture initially described the activity of the German, Dutch, Australian, and Danish avant-garde from 1910 and 1903. Subsequent redefinition extended the term backwards to 19 of 5, and also within it to encompass the rest of Europe. Today, meaning has broadened even feature to refine the architecture of any date or location that exhibits some of the qualities of the original movement, such as distortion or the communication of violent emotion. The style was characterized by an early modernist adoption of novel materials, formal innovation, and very unusual messing, sometimes inspired by the natural biomic forms, sometimes by the new technical possibilities offered by the mass production of brick, steel, and especially glass. Aesthetic philosophy behind style. Nietzsche had a particularly intense influence of the German experience with his words such as "Whoever wants to be a creative must first start by destroying everything, destroying all values." Why the style is beautiful? The search of beauty for the object made is the mastery he carried. The master implied here is of course not just about the technical skill. No matter how useful an object is, no matter how solid it is, it's necessary to look at the external things of perfection of the object, such as the visual harmony, good proportion, perfect formal order, the order of the parts, as well as the qualities that came from the use of that object in order to be qualified and ingenious. The external sample to call now the aesthetic aspect of the object and or structures. Some famous projects and why is aesthetic beautiful as photos. Also Einstein Tower and sketches. This museum. This museum space for art exhibition and museum. The sculpture form perfectly integrates with Bielorus industrial urban context, and the area is surrounded the circulation form with its exterior create the curved riverside, promenade, and generous public space on its southern side. The building's landscape track narrow pathways, and also some detail. And this sketch, expressionism architectures. This and other example, chill house. A major architecture characteristic of this style of movement, some detail and distortion of form and an emotional effect, and underlying effort at achieving the new, original, and visionary. And the conception of architecture as a work of art, and experience architecture also tends more towards the Romanesque and the Rococo than the classical. A major aesthetic characteristic of these styles. For example, what makes it unique? Unlike its goals were not to reproduce impressions suggested by the surrounding world, but to strongly impose the artist's own sensibility to the world's representation. The experienced artist visual object relate his own image of this object which he feels as an representation of its real meaning. The search of harmony and forms is not as important as trying to achieve the highest expression intensity, both from the aesthetic point of view and according to idea and human critics. And the style, characteristic and keywords of the style. Emotional expression of emotion, distorted from the emotional effect, subordinate of realism, mottos from the architects and some information. For example, beauty is not divine in a cloak of physical reality. No, it's a physical reality in a cloak that is divine. The artist does not bring the divine onto the earth by letting it flow into the world. He raises the world into the of the divine. References. Thank you.